Joining me is New Hampshire Representative Stephen Smith, who represents Sullivan County District 11, and he's running for a re-election this November. Stephen, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I guess my first question is, why are you running? And maybe just a little chance for the voters that don't know you to get a chance to know you.
Sure. Funny story. And the first time I ran, I didn't win, and I ran because I was a failed recruiter. I was supposed to find some Republican to run for the seat, and as I was out and about talking to people, they kept saying, well, you're here, so why don't you do it? And not being one to sit down when a job needs to be done, I did, and I succeeded my second time, and I find it rewarding.
So I should back up one quick question. What are the towns that are in Sullivan County District 11?
My towns are the entire southern third of Sullivan County: Ackworth, Charlestown, Goshen, Langdon, Leominster, and Washington.
So it's a pretty big little geographic district, isn't it?
It is, yeah. If you go any further east, you're in Hillsborough County, and if you go any further west, you get wet and have to start paying a sales tax.
So, okay, so Vermont. So tell me, how did you... how do you get to all the towns?
Oh, it's a circuitous route up over the hills from Ackworth. Langdon's kind of not on the way to anywhere, but that's the next town south from Charlestown. That's also where Fall Mountain Regional High School is, where my kids have gone, so I'm in there a lot. But to drive through the district without leaving the county is actually really hard. You have to drive on dirt roads through East Ackworth, and the cool thing out there is right at the East Ackworth-Leominster town line, there's this old sign for the crossroads back when that area was the big deal and they had factories. It must be over 100 years old, but the sign saying this way to Leominster, this way to Ackworth. It's white, painted, and so it's kind of cool.
So it's a little bit of the history of our district.
Yes, yeah. Oh, and I find old schoolhouses when I'm driving. It's amazing what's in the district.
So this is what, your second term you're running?
Nope, I've served my second. I'm running for my third.
Okay. And so tell me a little bit about last year. What are your impressions?
Last year?
Last biennium.
Yeah, so some things happened last year that probably didn't make the news because they weren't big ticket items. If it seems like if it isn't about abortion or gun control, nobody cares. The gas tax happened. Now, this ties into the thing that I am really wound up about. We had a bill, CACR 19. That's a constitutional amendment concurrent resolution. Mm-hmm. The first thing the voters need to know is we don't pass constitutional amendments. The voters do. We vote on whether or not they should be permitted to vote on it. So I've got a pretty high bar for saying, no, I don't want to know what the voters think. A valid case would be if you had two competing amendments that it would be impossible to implement simultaneously. Be it resolved that every New Hampshire citizen wear a blue shirt, be it resolved that every New Hampshire citizen wear a red shirt. You couldn't possibly do those two things. This one was fairly straightforward. It essentially said, if we gave you a reason when we took your money, should we actually have to use it for the reason given at the time? And I was so happy. This is what I always wished the legislature had the courage to do. It was sponsored by a bunch of Democrat senators and passed the Republican-controlled Senate, 21-2. Now, we had senators that are as far apart politically as you can get, and they both voted for it, so this seemed non-controversial. Well, the House choked, and they sent it to interim study, which in the second year of a legislative session we refer to as death with dignity for a bill, or as I call it, my apologies to my colleagues, I want to kill it, but I don't have the guts to actually do it. I didn't know what the problem was. They also tried to put it through on a mechanism where the voters would never see that we voted on it. It's called the consent calendar. The majority of the bills that go through the New Hampshire House are technical fixes requested by agencies and departments that they need to do their job. They're non-controversial, no point in having a vote on every one. So they go on this one list and we vote the whole package up or down. Well, I found this on that list. Now, one of the few powers that one lone representative has is nothing goes on that unless we consent unanimously. I pulled it off, I made phone calls, I made emails, I orchestrated a floor debate on it, and we were unsuccessful. If you look at things that have happened before, voter mistrust of the legislature is a truly bipartisan achievement. We can't blame each other for it. And it has to do with New Hampshire's history of shell games with the money. Some years back, We sold part of 93 to the Turnpike Authority to justify a legislative shell game where we were going to bond operating expenses, which would have been unconstitutional otherwise. When the very first gas tax was passed, the voters were told, well, fix your roads and bridges, and then all of a sudden, 2/3 of it is going someplace else to fund the Department of Public Safety. Fish and Game actually gets a slice, believe it or not. All these things have happened.
The new gas tax, the roll toll, whatever you want to call it,
Yep.
Will that go where it's supposed to go?
Of course not. And we saw the evidence of that when it was first proposed in 2013, the version that failed. The prime sponsor, Representative David Campbell, went through this tortured explanation. It was painful to listen to about how we're going to create a fund within a fund so that the money will actually go to the roads and bridges. That very same day, we heard a bill that would have allowed the governor to tap any dedicated fund at all for up to $500,000 without legislative consent, showing how honest we were about the money going there. The version that did pass has one guarantee in it. Now, one of the things when you first get elected, they teach you is you can't bind future legislatures over. That's not true. You can borrow tons of money that future legislatures will have to figure out how to pay back. The gas tax that we passed has $200 million plus of your tax dollars being poured onto I-93, and they borrowed that, they bonded it, so that payment's going to be made. None of the rest of it's guaranteed.
Okay, and I have to stop you there.